Hi, I'm Abigail Rao from Hope Assembly of God in Ellicott City, Maryland. I'm going to be doing a short sermon titled Know Him and Make Him Known. My main scripture references are going to be Galatians 1:10, Matthew 6:33, and 1 Corinthians 10:13. If I were to ask you when the last time you had your priorities all jumbled up, I'm guessing it wouldn't be too long ago, because that's definitely something our society struggles with today. According to Lifeway research, about 51% of teens in the U.S. claim to be Christian, while only about 8% even demonstrated the lifestyle or the habits of being a Christian. And only about half of Christian teens even took upon the responsibility of sharing their faith. Shocking, right? Well, I once heard the quote, Jesus is the bread of life. If you're starving, maybe it's because you're only eating once a week. And I realized how true this is. Thinking about it, I realized the huge difference that spending time in the Word makes. In my mindset, my thoughts, my words, and even my decisions. Priorities were something that I struggled with, but it was only when I began prioritizing God and centering my priorities around Him and His Word that I began to see that difference. The world we live in today makes it so easy to become accustomed putting our fleshly desires before our spiritual needs and get caught up in this world. Even if it's in social media, seeing everyone enjoying their picture-perfect lives, when we're still struggling to feel like we belong, and on top of that, we have to stuff God in our lives somehow? Is this really it, or does God call us beyond the compromised nature of this world? I love how Galatians 1:10 puts it. It says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant for Christ. What I want you to see in this verse is that our purpose here isn't solely based on pleasing people and what mere human beings think of us. Now, God isn't saying that we should completely disregard everyone and everything else in our life, only focus on Him, but rather when we put the pursuit of worldly acknowledgement first and try to conform ourselves as a Christian to fit society standards, it just doesn't yield the calling that God has on our lives. After all, we can't give the same importance that we give to our social image, the same importance we give to our relationship with our Creator. But you may be thinking, Abigail, so what is God's calling for us, and how does He really call us? Well, Matthew 6:33 answers that question. It says, but first seek His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. This shows us what God really aspires for our lives as believers to look like, focusing on keeping Him first and everything else following. And in reality, if He was one who created every inch of us, shouldn't it mainly be Him who we're trying to please? Oftentimes we forget the who and the what in our lives that should really matter. When you think about it that way, your viewpoint of who you are and what you are living for should look a whole lot different. But then it's our turn to run the race. God created us to be His witnesses and to be willing to share about Him to others around us, because that's the only thing He isn't capable of doing here on earth. When you do your part of sharing the Word, rest assured in the fact that He will take care of the rest. But instead of doing it like an obligation, we should do it truly from our heart. It's the least we can do as His followers, especially after all He did for us. The next thing you need to see is that the only way we can share the good news is through the overflow of Jesus in us. Because you can't give what you don't have. Picture this, your best friend asks you for help to tutor her in math, but you yourself don't fully understand the subject either. What good would it be to try and teach a thing that you aren't even familiar with? That's why it's so crucial to be full of God in our own personal lives, so that when it comes to telling someone else who's struggling, it's like our own testimony just pours out from the overflow in us. But that leads to the question, how? How can we live for God and be so bold in such a carnal world? Well, remember this, living for God begins with the realization of why we are to live for God. Fortunately, many times we forget the truth that without Him we're nothing. He's the reason behind everything that we are. The one who created us, wrote our story, blesses us, takes care of us, plus countless more blessings. When you really think about it that way, why would you not want to be best friends with your awesome Creator? There's no one else that's worth living for more. And remember, you're not alone. When God sees the effort that we make to try and center Him, He'll always help us. Just like He says in 1 Corinthians 10:13, He is faithful and will not let you be tempted more than you can bear. So when we give God the great importance, our life will stay on God's track. Though it might not always be the same as our track, remember, God's God's. So I challenge you today to spend time every day feasting on Jesus, the bread of life. Let today be the day that your priorities become focused on knowing Him and making Him known. Do you know Him?